Hey guys, thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're going to take a look at a monster 12-volt battery, lithium iron phosphate, as most of the batteries that I review are. And this is a 460 amp hour beast. And that equates to about 5,888 watt hours. It's by a company called Temgot. And I did review a Temgot battery about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it had some kind of cool, interesting, unique features, as does this guy right here. So first of all, it does have metal housing, and you can get into it if you need to, and we will a little bit later. It's got a single terminal for each of the positive and negative poles over here on the side. On the top, it's got a touchscreen LCD display that we'll take a closer look at. It does have Bluetooth app, and it's got low temp cutoff protection. So we're gonna have to test that and make sure that works as built as well. And yeah, so let's just dive in and see what this thing is all about and whether or not it's something you might be interested in considering. All right, let's talk about the dimensions on this battery. So this metal case is about 18 inches from edge to edge, but if you include the contactors here, the connectors on the side, these terminals, that adds about another 1.25 inches. So call it 19.25 inches to the edge of the contacts here on the terminals. Now in terms of height, again here, this is just a little over 10 inches, but if you add in the handles while they're laid flat, because they are able to be folded down, but that does take it to about 10.5 inches in terms of height. Now in terms of depth this way, it is 10.5 inches in this direction. I think 10.6 inches in that direction. Now in terms of weight, this thing is a monster, as you would expect at 460 amp hours. This thing weighs in at almost exactly 100 pounds, and you feel it. So it's a bit of a workout if you have to move it. All right, let's take a look at this display on top in a little more detail. All right, to turn on the display, you just simply short press the power button there, and it will pop up. You can see we are at 100% state of charge. Not pulling any power right now. I have nothing connected. Our current system voltage here is 14.39 volts, and it does give me a current temperature. And let's see, and this is touch sensitive, by the way, so I can go to page 2, and you can see that I can turn on or off the discharge and charge capability. It'll show me how many cycles are on the battery. You can see I've only got one cycle currently. It shows me the current minimum and max temperatures, and that its status is normal. And then I can look at the individual cells here on page 3 and see that they are pretty well balanced. All right, let's go back to page 1. That's basically all there is to it. There is a Bluetooth app, and I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and connect my DC testers, and we will get a usable capacity test out of this 460 amp hour monster and see how much of this rated 5,888 watt hours we can actually get from this battery. All right, because this thing has such a high capacity, I've got two DC testers here because these can only pull somewhere between 130 and 150 watts each. So it's going to take a long while, even with two testers connected. But I did rig up a couple little bus bars here on a sheet of wood so they wouldn't fall over and short out on each other. And I've got both of these connected at the same time. So let me go ahead and turn on the discharge from the touchscreen menu, reactivate that. And I should now be registering, 14.3 volts, 14.38 volts on the other tester. All right, let me go ahead and dial up, see if I can get a full 10 amps on this tester and get that going. It has already been zeroed out. All right, I got 10 amps. We are pulling 128 watts. Let me go ahead and set this guy up. And I got 10 amps going on the other one. All right, so both are zeroed out, and we will start accumulating watt hours. Now this is going to take a pretty long time. In fact, if I look at the LED screen here, or the LCD display, it says 23 hours 45 minutes at this current discharge rate. So yeah, that's going to take a very long time. So I will see you tomorrow, and we'll find out how many usable watt hours we pulled out by adding up the total watt hours we caught on both of these testers. All right, looks like our first DC discharge capacity test is done. And if you recall, there was only one full cycle in the battery. So this is the first one. So let's just see how we did. All right, so on the tester on the left, we got a total of 2827 watt hours. And the tester on the right, we got a total of 2,768 watt hours. So that gives us a total of 5,595 watt hours combined. And that is 95% exactly of the 5,888 rated watt hours. So that already is very good numbers. I think it's always a good idea to do a second test just to make sure we're getting consistent results, especially since that is the first cycle for the battery. So I'm going to do a full recharge and a full discharge test again to see if we are getting consistent numbers from one test to the next. So that's going to take me quite a while, but that's only going to take a couple seconds from your perspective. So let's jump right in and get that done.
2 hours later.
All right, test number 2 is wrapped up. Let's double check the results here. Let me zoom in. Okay, on the tester on the left, we got 2,795.5 watt hours. And the tester on the right, we got 2,757.5 watt hours. So that's a total of 5,553 or 5,553 watt hours. That's out of a rated 5,888 watt hours for just a little bit over 94% of rated. Now, I think what's even more noteworthy here, if you take a look at the amp hour reading, on the one on the left, it says 236 amp hours, and on the one on the right, 240.38 amp hours. Now, this is a 460 rated amp hour battery, and we got 476 amp hours. And you might say, now why do we get more amp hours but less watt hours? And I think the reason for that is simply because we are pulling these testers with such a relatively low wattage that this test runs for about 24 hours. So we're losing a little bit of that power, that overall watt hours in the process of that 24-hour of discharge. So my conclusion from this test is that this Temgot 460 amp hour battery definitely does live up to its rated capacity. And if I could discharge this at a quicker rate, I have no doubt that we would easily attain that 5,888 watt hour. All right, let's get this thing fully charged back up and let's see if we can run some tests on it and see what we can do to try to maximize that 250 amp continuous discharge rating. All right, let's do some load testing on this battery. Now, it is rated for a max discharge current of 250 amps. You can see that I am currently pulling 103 amps. I have two separate 2,000 watt AC inverters connected right now. Let me add some additional load from the second AC inverter. I'm sure we're going to get some fan noise from this. And this should spike us up. We are now at 253, so we are pulling max current. Let me go ahead and start a timer. See if we can run it in this state for a full 10 minutes. All right, clearly no problem for the full 10 minutes. We weren't actually at the 250 amp mark, but we were very close, 245 amps. Let me go ahead and get the timer out of here. But now let's see what happens. Let me zoom in a little closer. Let's see what happens if I add a little bit more load. Hopefully this won't trip one of my AC inverters, but we'll find out. This will push us over. Now we're at 250, 260 amps, 261, 263, 264, 266. Oh, we're still climbing. We just almost hit 270 amps and now we're starting to fall. That's because this little heater that I turned on does tend to start high and then it cuts off. Okay, we went all the way to zero current, which tells me that it's the battery and not, yeah, so the battery is now reset. But the battery BMS is what actually shut us off here. So I'll go ahead and turn off discharge. So this Temgot battery definitely passed that sustained 250 amp discharge rate. And then we got a little bit more than that out of it for close to, I would say 30 or 40 seconds, almost to 270 amps before the BMS finally did shut us down, which is what you want it to do to protect the internal wiring. All right, in a learn from my mistakes moment here, I want to point something out. This disconnect switch is clearly not rated. I'm gonna have to look it up and see what this was rated for, but it is clearly not rated for 250 amps because this doesn't actually work anymore. I can feel that something is melted in here. In fact, I can pull that off. It melted the plastic on this. And that is a very bad thing, because in the event that you overloaded this somehow, you would absolutely want the ability to disconnect power if you wanted to, or if you needed to. And the fact that I melted this little handle here, that little post in there, to the point where I can't turn it off from here, that's a problem. Now, the good news is that this battery, does have that disconnect here on page 2, so I can actually shut off discharge on this battery as I've actually done. But, if I didn't have that, I would be in a dangerous situation here if I needed to disconnect power in emergency. So just be aware of that. Make sure your disconnect switches are rated for the type of current that they need to be able to handle. All right, let's get this cover off of there and see what we're working with. All right, there's the cover. We got the cover off, and I removed the little plastic sheet here that sort of insulates the cover from the actual battery terminals. You can see these are prismatic cells, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. So here is definitely one temperature probe, and that tip is right here under this little glob of silicone. All right, let's see if we can see where the other one goes. Oh, okay, so the other temperature probe is over here. So we're going to see if this is a low temp or high temp probe first, and see if it cuts off charging as we would expect. Yeah, if you can see down here in the corner, the light is red, so it means we are charging. So let me try heating this up a little bit and see if that does anything. All right, the light just went green. So this is obviously the high temp probe. So high temp protection definitely working. All right, so we verified that these two temperature probes do respond to heat. Let's find out if one or both of them will respond to cold. And I have a glass of ice water here that is basically frozen solid, except for a little hole that I've drilled in the center. So let me go ahead and apply a charge. Get this thing charging. You see that we momentarily had a green light that said we had power to it, and now it is actively charging, so we have a red light. Now, as I understand it, there's a 5 or 6 second delay once the freezing temperature is detected before the cutoff is supposed to happen. So let's find out if that actually behaves that way or not. And it shut off. So we have a green light. Let's go ahead and let that warm back up, see if it resumes. So we verified that one of the probes definitely responds to cold. Let me warm that up with my hand. And as you see, and hear probably, it does resume charging. All right, let's try the other probe, which would be this guy here, see if it does the same thing. Yep, it also shut off charging, and I assume if I warm it up, it resumes charging. So low temp and high temp cutoff behave exactly as they should. Now, while we've got the lid off, let's just take another quick look in here. So this obviously is the lead for the display on the top of the lid, and but they've got bus bars in here that are nice quality bus bars. They are actually not welded. They are bolted with Loctite, and it looks like they have little checks on them with a little marker that say, I assume, quality control, checked each one for torque. That's what I would assume those marks are for. Balanced leads are attached, and yeah, everything looks really well done. The inside here, these corners are all reinforced. There is reinforced bracing here. There is space. I noticed that this space here for the expansion port on the top for off-gassing, if needed, that is open all the way across this channel. So there's a little oval space that corresponds to each one of these prismatic cells. And this bracing here is threaded so that when you can put the insulator board on and it doesn't move around at all, and it keeps everything isolated from the top of the lid, or the underside of the lid. And taking a look at the underside of the lid, so if you take a quick look at that, you can see that there is padding, foam padding here, and bracing along the top that helps give this rigidity if you're lifting this with the handles on either side here, with these that are from these mounting bolts. So these are all put in here in such a way as to provide added reinforcement, and they clearly did a nice job at making sure this was well bolstered to handle the significant amount of weight that this battery has. Okay, so let's wrap up some final thoughts. I'm very impressed with the quality and feature set on this battery. Really, the only thing that I can think of that I would have liked to have seen is maybe dual terminal connectors. I find that those are more convenient when you're stringing multiple units together in parallel, so you don't have to stack two cables on the same terminal. And they're also just a little bit better at heat dissipation. And this one only has single terminals on each pole. But that said, as long as you're careful and you ensure your ring terminals are making a good contact, it's really not a deal breaker. And of course, if you're not planning on stringing multiple batteries in parallel, it's a complete non-issue. And speaking of multiple batteries, this battery does support up to 10 units connected in parallel and up to 4 batteries in series. So if you wanted to, you could actually construct a massive 94 kilowatt hour, 94,000 watt hour battery bank with 16 of these batteries in a 4S 4P configuration. I also find that this little touchscreen LCD display on the top to be very useful, giving you visibility into the battery status details, and also the ability to enable and disable charging and discharging. And even if your storage situation might prevent you from easily accessing this display on the top, you do still have the Bluetooth access from the mobile app on the battery status information, but just be aware that it's read-only from the mobile app, so you can't enable or disable charge and discharge from the mobile app. I also think that having a 250 amp BMS in this battery is extremely helpful. It gives you the ability to continuously output a massive 3,200 watts of power if you need to, which is really impressive from just a single 12-volt battery. And for mobile power applications where space is often very limited, being able to deploy a single 460 amp hour battery that takes up about half of the total area of 4 100 amp hour batteries, while also giving you more capacity as kind of a bonus, that's a pretty compelling advantage as well. But you do want to factor in that this battery does weigh in at a hefty, massive 100 pounds. So it is a beast to move for one person unless you happen to be a professional weightlifter. Now, in terms of price, after doing some of my own product research, I find that this battery is extremely competitive, and it's available on both Amazon and direct from Temgot's website. I think the current sale price is $11.39, though I also know that if you buy it direct from Temgot's website, there is an additional discount code that you can use that'll get the price down just a little bit further. But if you're interested, you may want to check out both locations and find out where you can get the best price for for where you happen to be. And of course, per usual, I'll leave links to those for you in the description below. But anyway, at that price, it is extremely competitive, even with many slightly smaller capacity options in the, say, 400 amp hour capacity range. And that is, even on batteries without Bluetooth and without a built-in LCD display or low temp cutoff protection. And before I forget to mention it, Temgot does offer a 5-year warranty on this battery, which I think is pretty typical for this class of lithium iron phosphate battery. And I found that, if you wanted to get a longer warranty than 5 years, typically what's going to happen is you're going to pay anywhere from 50 to 100% more to get that longer warranty. And that, to me, as a frugal, budget-minded shopper, that kind of just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, I think that's probably a wrap on this video. Hopefully you found something useful or informative. If you did, I'd very much appreciate it if you'd be so kind as to consider clicking that like button down under the video for me, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into this kind of content and you don't already happen to be a subscriber. I do offer my sincere thanks for spending some of your valuable time with me today, and I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, stay charged, everyone. Ha! I bet you thought I was going to say, have fun out there. Wrong. Have fun out there.